Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, so we're going to talk about affordability, buying versus renting, and we actually have hard data. We're going to show you a heat map that you're going to love. So these numbers were taken from a company called Adam. They're a aggregator of data, and what they did is they took median home prices and median rents for 3-bedroom homes. So they took all 3-bedroom homes in a market that were like for sale or people were living in, and then they took the median value of the home. And then what they did is they took the same 3-bedroom homes and they took median rent. So they said on average, if you're living in a 3-bedroom house and you're paying a mortgage and you're paying rent, which is more? And in some markets, it's cheaper to buy. In some markets, it's cheaper to rent. So it's only based on buying versus renting. It has nothing to do with home affordability, has nothing to do with any of that. It's strictly based on if you're going to live in a median 3-bedroom house, is it cheaper for you every month from a cash flow perspective to buy the house or to pay somebody rent, right? That's all this is. Okay, before I show the chart, let's talk about this whole, forget home affordability, and just talk about the buy versus rent psychology. Like, why are there some people who just never buy? And why are some people, every time they move somewhere, the first thing they do is they find an agent and say, I want to buy a house?
So part of it's just personality types. I would assume people who are just not comfortable owning the house because they don't want to be responsible for it, in the sense that, if something breaks, they would rather that somebody else be responsible for taking care of fixing it and that sort of thing. Part of it is because maybe people are there short term and they are planning to move on. Part of it, I think, is affordability from the perspective that maybe they don't have the funds to buy a house, even though that can be mitigated through different programs. And part of it, I think, is education too. I think people don't realize that buying a house is, to some extent, not substantially more difficult than renting a house. You have to go through the same process. You have to apply, you have to have good credit, you have to show bank statements, that sort of thing. It's really not substantially different.
Yep.
It just sounds like a very scary commitment.
When you are renting today in Las Vegas, you were seeing 5 or 6 applicants per property. The landlord is picking the person with the highest credit score. Those credit scores, we see them. We've seen some pretty high numbers, 800 credit scores from tenants. They're renting. They have substantial income. We see the bank statements.
Right.
To us, there's no reason they can't buy a house, but they're choosing not to.
Right, and that's not unusual. It's just a matter of how people perceive that responsibility of home ownership.
Right. Okay. So we're gonna put the chart up here. So this is the chart. It's the buy or rent heat map. This is current data 2022. Now I'm gonna explain what all these circles are. You're just seeing green circles and you're seeing the purple circles. A green circle means it's more affordable to rent in that market. A purple circle means it's more affordable to buy in that market. The size of the circle only represents this population of that area. It doesn't mean it's that much more affordable to rent or that much more affordable to buy. So we're starting on the West Coast. You see that there's a big circle down south. That's Los Angeles. If you look below it, you have Orange County, which is a smaller circle. And if you look below that, you have San Diego. So you see those 3 kind of big circles. If you go to the right a little bit, you see Phoenix, right? And then as you keep moving, then you hit Texas, and then you start to see purple circles, right? And those represent Dallas, San Antonio, the Rio Grande Valley, and those places. And you go down to Florida. Now, what's interesting about this is, and you're looking at this probably going, oh, well, it looks like it's more affordable to rent in most of the country. And that's actually not the case. The data that backs these numbers say it's 60% of the country, it's still more affordable to buy from a monthly cash flow perspective than it is to pay rent to somebody. What's weird about this is, remember, you have those green circles and they're all over there, but there's some blue circles over there too, but the green circles, remember, that's the West Coast. The population on the West Coast is nothing compared to once you get to the Mississippi and go east. So all that massive, all those purple circles that are by, it's way more affordable. So you hit Texas, you get to like New Mexico and like Arkansas, Oklahoma, the whole upper Midwest, except for like Miami and then maybe like Boston, New York, DC, some markets like that, it's more affordable to rent. But in 60% of the country, it is more affordable to buy still. Now, I believe that until that number gets below 50%, we're still nationally, we're still going to see home prices appreciate. Maybe in some of these West Coast markets, we'll see home prices start to taper off. Since it's more affordable to rent, maybe some more people will just decide, hey, I'm just going to rent. But nationally, it's still 60% more affordable in those markets.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is in some of these green areas, obviously Las Vegas, where we are, we're seeing, prices appreciating 1% or better per month still, and yet, Las Vegas is one of those green areas where it says that it's more affordable to rent than it is to buy. So I think that's interesting.
Something else to think about. Like all data, this is not perfect. If it's a dollar more affordable to rent, it's going to be a green circle. Right. So if that really big circle that's LA, right? I think we all know that LA is probably cheaper to rent than buy. But if you look at like Colorado, they have all those green circles, but then all of a sudden you see like Pueblo is in a purple circle, right? And some other communities that are maybe in the mountains are in purple circles. But then along the Front Range, Denver, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, Boulder, it's more affordable to rent. But what we don't know is by how much, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing with this heat map. But I wanted to share this with you because I think this is fascinating. And it'll be interesting to get, like, if we could get more granular on this data and look at specific markets and go, hey, it's more affordable in LA by 30% to rent, or certainly San Francisco is more affordable to rent. Mm-hmm. But then maybe some of these other markets that are in states where they're green and they're blue, like maybe Phoenix. Phoenix maybe not be that much more affordable to rent. It may be $5 a month difference, but if it's $5 cheaper to rent, the median 3-bedroom. And then of course the thing too is maybe you're an entry-level buyer and maybe, remember the data is 3-bedroom home. So maybe you're going to go get a condo. It might still be cheaper to buy the condo, even though the market's green, might be cheaper in that market. So right. It's not perfect data. So when you look at this and go, hey, that's not right because I live in that thing and I just bought a house and it was cheaper to whatever. Right. This is a median. It's not a perfect thing, but the 60% number is interesting because I think because this sample is pretty accurate. So I think if you took that 60% and went across the country with it, you would find that and I read another thing where they said it was 57%. They said it was 57% more affordable. You're more likely to be able to buy cheaper than rent.
Right. One of the things that I always wonder, do people rent because they want properties that are more updated and upgraded, and it's kind of like people who trade in cars every couple of years? Is that something that people do? I don't know. I mean, my experience in property management has been that people stay in rental properties for a long time. So I haven't seen that. But I do wonder if there are people who choose to rent because they simply want to be in the newest home that they can be in. So, if you're a tenant and you've chosen to be a tenant for some time, what are you doing? Are you staying in the same property for a long period of time, or are you going from property to property every year or two because it's newer and refurbished and that sort of thing? I'd be interested to find out.
Mozart's family in Salzburg, Austria, lived in the same apartment for 26 years. The parents rented an apartment. They didn't own it. They rented it. Mm-hmm. They were prominent musicians. The whole family was. The parents were musicians. The two of the children, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, who's probably the one you know. He had a sister who was super famous, a brother who was also pretty famous. He wasn't able to afford to buy his own place. I mean, he grew up in the house and he got married and lived with his wife in this little apartment. It was an apartment, and you can still go there. It's this exact same apartment that they lived in before he actually had enough to go buy a place. And then he bought like a really nice house, which is maybe just like a 5-minute walk. It wasn't because Salzburg's not a big town, but he owned it. It was beautiful and everything. So it's like it's not unusual to rent.
Right.
Nikolai Tesla, even though he'd made all these breakthroughs in electricity, at the end of his life, he was just living in an apartment basically in New York City. He didn't have any money. So some people it's easier just to pay rent, and that's just how it is. So, but like Wanda said, tell us your story.
Yeah.
Why will you never buy again? Is it because you bought during the 2005, and then a couple years later you needed to move, and the house was it was upside down, and you just said, forget it, this is a scam, I'm not doing this again? And because I know a ton of people who've they bought and sold 4 houses in their life, and they made money on everyone, and they're just like, yes, I made it. And on average, you do make money. More people make money on their house than.
But we also know people who made money on some houses, and other houses they had the short sale during the downturn. So everybody's story is different. So we'd like to know your story.
Yeah. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, and we'll see you on the next video.
Bye.
Bye.